The Boston Celtics have been incredibly disappointing. While their record of 49-33 might not look too bad on paper, that record was far below expectations. Where the Boston Celtics ended up was very different from where they were expected to end up. To many people, the Celtics were expected to be playing a few hours from when this goes up, in the NBA Finals. Instead, they lost pretty embarrassingly to the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games, and they probably would have lost to the Indiana Pacers had Oladipo been healthy. Undoubtedly, the biggest catalyst in the disappointment of the Boston Celtics was Kyrie Irving. Now, once again, Kyrie Irving on paper was fine. Great, even. He had one of the best, if not the best, statistical seasons of his career. He averaged 24 points per game, which was the 3rd highest of his career. He averaged a career-high 5 rebounds and career-high 6 assists while shooting 49, 40, 87. But what's on paper is deceiving, because Kyrie Irving this year, well, he was fucking weird. He decided that he was gonna be a vocal leader, but he sucked at it. And then when it came time to prove his leadership in the second round of the playoffs, he sucked. So that's not great. Because of this, as well as a whirlwind of rumors, it's now looking more and more likely that Kyrie Irving will be leaving the Boston Celtics, either for one of the New York teams or the LA Lakers. Which, side note, don't go to LA, Kyrie. I don't think there is a more pride-destroying move out there than crawling back to LeBron James after you tried so desperately to get away from him. It's just not a good look. So let's look at what the Boston Celtics will look like if Kyrie Irving leaves. Before we start today's video, I want to talk about this video's sponsor, my podcast. Me and Mojo99 have started a podcast called the Hoopscast. We will be posting an hour-long episode every 1 to 2 weeks. Our first episode will be out soon. It will be our thoughts on the NBA Finals, whenever it is that those end. Maybe it can be tomorrow, depending on if the Raptors win this game. The link to the podcast channel will be in the description and in the card above. And we are working on getting it on all platforms, if you would prefer to listen to it on Spotify and iTunes, as soon as possible. So give the channel a sub, hit the bell while you're at it, and with that out of the way, let's move on to the video. So what we should look at first is how good is Kyrie Irving? It's hard to tell how big of a loss he is without knowing how good he is. So to me, this year, and especially the playoffs, have lowered Kyrie Irving on my best players in the league list. Originally, he was towards the bottom of the top 10. Now I'd say he's dropped out of the top 10. Kyrie, I think, is good enough to be the best scorer on a championship team, but not the best player. In my mind, he's basically the opposite of Nikola Jokic for me. I think Jokic can be the best player on a championship team, but not the best scorer on a championship team. By no means is he a bad scorer, but I don't think he can be the best. Hopefully, Michael Porter Jr. can fill that role, though I'm doubtful. So with Kyrie, I don't think that he is enough to put them over the top. I just thought, as well as many others, that because this team is so deep and talented, and because this team made it to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year without Kyrie, that with him, they'd be able to at least make the NBA Finals. But the Celtics ended up being in a weird place, where because the team without Kyrie Irving made it so far, they didn't really adjust well to him returning. And I'm sure there was some turmoil in the locker room. Maybe it wasn't spoken, but I'm sure it was a lingering feeling in the locker room around the idea of, we made it this far without Kyrie, and now he's weirdly trying to boss the younger dudes around. I don't know, I think the Celtics honestly would have been better off just losing in the second round of that year's playoffs, so that this whole dynamic just never became a thing. Another issue that I think has gone far too under the radar is going from an underdog to a favorite. There was no expectations at all for this team when Kyrie Irving got injured, and with no pressure, they pushed LeBron in one of the best playoff runs of all time to 7 games. So all of that is to say that Kyrie Irving leaving the Celtics is by no means a doomsday scenario, because this team still has a solid foundation for the present and the future. Like I said, this team has made it incredibly far without Kyrie Irving, so it's fair to expect that they can be a solid team without him. There are 2 different directions that the Boston Celtics can go this offseason, hinging on what Al Horford does with his contract. There is full-on build around Tatum and Brown, or just do what they're doing now minus Kyrie Irving. The reason that hinges on Al Horford is because he has a $30 million player option. Now, odds are Horford takes that because he isn't getting anything better than 20 mil on the open market, but being 33, he could be interested in chasing a championship, a spot that could be opening up on the Warriors soon. He could definitely help them. And Kyrie Irving leaving would free up 22 mil. The Celtics were about to be over the cap by 20 mil, but him leaving pretty much makes it even, and then Al Horford leaving gives them 30 million in cap space. They would be a lot better off and would have nearly 2 max slots had they not given that awful contract to Gordon Hayward. Fun fact, not so fun if you're a Boston Celtics fan, Gordon Hayward has made 60 million over the last 2 years, and in that time he scored 913 points, meaning he made $65.7 thousand per point scored as a Celtic. That's pretty awful, but either way, the Celtics still would have 30 million in cap space to work with to bring in some more players. And I think they should use that money to bring in more young players rather than veteran talent. For example, I think trying to make a run at D'Angelo Russell wouldn't be a bad idea. Could give some money to Kelly Oubre, Malcolm Brogdon, Kevin Looney could be a decent Al Horford replacement. Those are just some options. The second option would be trying to contend further without Kyrie Irving. They can do that by retaining Al Horford, re-signing Marcus Morris, and then that's about all they can do. Unless there's some route where they're able to trade Gordon Hayward, which there probably isn't. But there's also a third route where maybe Al Horford doesn't take his player option, but you still sign some veterans to continue to be a contender-ish. Like Chris Middleton, or maybe Klay Thompson, and that's a strong maybe, Tobias Harris or Bojan Bogdanovic. These are all guys that besides, again, maybe Klay Thompson, that you can get on a below max contract. Again, I would go with that first route, trying to use that money on some young players. Now, outside of free agency, what do they really have with this roster? Well, actually, real quick, don't re-sign Terry Rozier. He is not a good player. He is essentially the J.R. Smith of point guards. Not a 2013 J.R. Smith, a 2018 J.R. Smith. It's bad. Don't re-sign him, or at the very least, don't re-sign him to a large contract. And certainly don't expect him to be a Kyrie Irving replacement. I understand that Rozier stepped up like crazy in last year's playoffs, but that's not enough to throw him $15 million a year. Sometimes chuckers get hot and they look like gods amongst men, but that's not reality. So anyways, for what the Celtics have, they have Jason Tatum obviously, then Jaylen Brown, and the next 2 guys that are key to this team long term would be Marcus Smart and maybe Robert Williams. So let's talk about Smart and Williams. Smart, throughout all this season's bullshit, somehow ended up being one of the most consistent players on this team. He averaged 9 and 4 and he shot 36% from 3 on 4.3 attempts. Finally, Marcus has been respectable as a 3-point shooter. He's become basically a taller Patrick Beverley. His hustle and intensity is integral to this team. He really is the heart of this Celtics team, and he's a player that every team in the league would be happy to have, especially now that he's hitting threes with consistency. Robert Williams will be a sophomore next year. He got minimal play time as a rookie, but in that time he averaged 2.5 points and rebounds, as well as 1.3 blocks in just 9 minutes a game. Per 36, and yes, obviously this stat can be deceiving, but I just want to use this to showcase how good he was in his limited minutes. In his per 36, he averaged 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocks. So he is a good rebounder, obviously a good shot blocker, and a good finisher at the rim, shooting 70%. Hopefully, if the Celtics go in a younger direction, Robert can get some more minutes because he is a very solid player who deserves it. Jaylen Brown, I think, would benefit more than anyone if Kyrie Irving left. Brown was the 4th scoring option on this team. Al Horford and Marcus Morris were ahead of him. If Kyrie left and those guys left with him, Brown is now suddenly the 2nd option. This year, Brown initially struggled, but post All-Star break, he's averaged 14 and 4, shooting 50% from the field and 41% from 3, and he had a handful of 20-point games. Brown is a solid shooter, he's very athletic, and a serviceable shot creator. As of now, Brown is a great supporting piece. He'd be good, he could be the 4th option on a championship contender. But I think the Celtics taking a dip would be great individually individually for Jaylen Brown, and great for the Celtics' long-term future. Brown can be the second option now and further develop his shot-creating ability. He is a solid ball handler, he has really good form on his pull-up jumpers, he just needs to get to that higher level to truly become a star player, because I definitely think he has the potential to do that. Next is the most important guy for the Celtics' future, and that is obviously Jason Tatum. Tatum had a bit of a sophomore slump, but I do not blame him for it at all. Because so many shots were being spread around, Tatum wasn't getting the ball nearly as much as he should have been, so once he did get the ball, having a scorer's mentality and being starved of the ball, he would try and score, whether there was an opportunity to score or not. Again, I think the Celtics dipping and losing some talent would be good for Jason Tatum, just like Jaylen Brown. If Kyrie leaves, it means Tatum becomes the #1 scoring option. That might not be ideal for winning right now, but it will be for winning in the future. I think Tatum and Brown have been treated unfairly. Because the Celtics were so good so early, a lot of expectations of winning have been put on them as really young players, which is far from ideal. But I think now if Kyrie leaves, they could benefit from a little bit lower expectations. And overall, I think the Celtics will be fine. Jason and Jaylen have a bright future, and they could potentially have money to bring in some more young players. This team has a bright future with or without Kyrie Irving. That's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe and check out the Hoops cast. Again, a link will be in the description, and cue the outro music.